Welcome to Daily Life Connection. Thanks for joining us again today. Let's continue to explore Luke 15 and how it shows us what God is really like, what Abba's heart is really like. Well, yesterday I mentioned something about the older brother, and I want to continue with that thought today. The older brother, I said, had substituted living by moral codes for life in Christ, for living in relationship with the Father and the Son and the Spirit. I think that is so true of so much of the church in so many ways. We can so easily get sucked into living by a moral code and thinking that is what God mostly wants from us or wants most from us, instead of understanding what he wants most from us is relationship. And then out of that relationship which transforms us, we will live well, but it isn't the other way around. We get it backwards. We get the cart before the horse. We think moral living leads us to relationship with God. It's the other way around. It's relationship with God that leads us into moral living. I just want to say it again. He had substituted living by moral codes for a relationship with the Father. It's just like Eden, isn't it? The Garden of Eden. And what happened was Adam and Eve were each day in relationship with God, walking in the garden with him, being in close relationship and fellowship with him. But then the enemy comes along and says, you know what's really important? Knowing what's right and what's wrong, knowing the moral code and living by that. That's what will make you godly. And they bought into that with deadly consequences. It's toxic consequences. And we see that, and we see that so often in the church, where we have these moral codes and we get people to comply with them, and we work hard at promoting them and discipling people to follow them, but they miss the relationship with Abba, and there's no joy in that. There's a concept out there called bounded community and centered community. I want to just address that for a second here. Bounded community is where it's like a farm with a fence around the field, and the cows are either in the fence or they're out of the fence. You know who's in and who's out by those who've accepted the boundaries, the standards, the moral codes, the belief systems. And churches, we sometimes set those up. We often set those up and say, if you believe this way and if you behave this way, then you're in the community. And if you don't, then you're outside. You're an outsider. And so the point of this is to be in the community rather than to be in relationship with the God of the community. And then there are the centered sets. Centered sets are like a farm where there's a well being drilled, has been drilled, and the cattle, no matter, there's no fences, but they come to that well to get water because they are thirsty and need to drink. And that's the centered community. That's what's going on here in this story. Abba wants a centered community. The older brother is on the farm. He's in the bounded community. He's keeping all the rules. He's not jumping outside the fence like the younger brother. He's staying in the fences, so he's on the farm. But sadly, he's not enjoying relationship with the Father. He's not enjoying the whole purpose and point and activity of the farm, which is celebration with the Father. And yet we see this younger son who's certainly outside those boundaries, but because he turns his attention toward home, he centers, he focuses. The Father is the center. God is the center, Abba's the center, and he focuses on that. And when he does, he finds himself enjoying the blessings of the community. So I just want us to think about that today, in this case, we are not going to enjoy the blessings of the community, of communion with the Father, simply by observing moral codes and standards. It's by centering our attention and our heart on him. That's where we find ourselves, not in whether are you in or are you out, but are you focused toward the center? Are you moving toward the center? That's what gives the Father's heart great joy. As soon as he saw the Son a long way off, as soon as he saw that son's gaze was toward home, his attention was focused toward him, he ran to him, hugged him, kissed him, celebrated him. That's the joy of being in centered community with Father, is set our hearts and our attention on him, and we'll find ourselves enjoying the blessings of the community, not by observing a high moral code or standard. That is not what gets us into that enjoyment of that relationship. Well, let's think about that today, and let's ask ourselves, how much do I live in a bounded community? How much do I evaluate my inness? How in am I with God? Is it dependent on how well I behave and what I believe, or is it dependent on where my heart is focused? Let's think about that today, and we'll talk again tomorrow.